Okay, I should introduce Prof. Dr. Hussein Rassool from Mauritius. Prof. Rassool is a professor of Islamic psychology at Charles Sturt University, Australia. He has authored many books on Islamic psychology, most of which are published by Routledge. Sister Hanan said that Prof. Rassool is the most scholar here among us in this forum. Congratulations. So his work, Islamic counseling and psychotherapy, became a bestseller. For those, if you're not having the book yet, please do so. His writing cover a wide range of mental health issues, focusing on culturally competent interventions for Muslim population, particularly in addiction treatment and counseling. He has written extensively on Islamic models of addiction recovery, highlighting the spiritual dimension of healing. Please welcome Prof. Rassool. You have 25 minutes. Yeah.
The birthday. The thing is, okay. Maybe we can just. All right. Sure, sure. Okay. Thank you very much. I need to follow. Dr. Hanandover after such interesting, ideas, and I think we need to reflect on these ethics and also collaboration. Anyway, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سن بسنته يوم الدين ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري وأحلل عقدة من لساني ويفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I feel honored and privileged to be here among such distinguished professors and scholars and academics, of course, participant as well. My thesis is a very stop moving. Oops. Okay. Right. My thesis is okay. Is basically exploring, the oops. What's wrong with it? Exploring the relevance of Islamic psychology in the modern world, really. Basically, the question is about, why is Islamic psychology important for humanity? So I need to try to defend this particular thesis, and I'll try my best as much as I can. And basically, the aims of this lecture is to look at the relevance of Islamic psychology or the psychological insight, in today's world, and not only for just Muslim, but for the whole humanity. It's a big task anyway, so move on. I'm going to miss a few slides because I don't have much time. Why is it important? I made some sort of, summary there. One of them is the holistic nature of the human being. In conventional mental health or psychopathology, we tend to look at people either physical problem or mental problem. We don't have the intersection between the physical, mental, and the spiritual. Yeah. So one of my rationale, it's that Islamic psychology is important, is because of its pure holistic nature. Just to digress a little bit, the word health itself, which probably a lot of people don't know, come from an Anglo-Saxon word. It means from the word hal, which means health, whole. So when we talk about health itself, it means whole. So when we talk about holistic health, it's a bit redundant there. We're just saying whole. So the word health itself, if you look at the origin of the word, is holistic. So anyway, one of them is holistic. And that's also the integration between the mind, body, and spirit. Because again, we don't deal with the sort of Cartesian dualism. We don't separate the physical from the psychological. Why? One of the reasons, I tell you, is from my experience clinically, most of the patients who have psychotic problem come to me with physical pain. I have pain in here, I have pain in my back, not psychological problem. So if you're going to treat somebody just for their physical pain, you leave their depression, the anxiety, the obsession out. So again, I'm saying that we need, when we look at a person, we need to look at, the whole person, which means the physical, social, psychological, spiritual, even economic, why not? Environmental as well. Poor housing have a lot to do with mental health, and employment have a lot to do with mental health. So we need to look at the holistic, view of human. Of course, it's a bridge, a gap between faith and science. Of course, faith and science during the Islamic period, they call it the Golden Age. I call it the Islamic Renaissance between the 9th century to the 14th, 15th century. All these polymath, all these scholars, they brought faith and science together. Yeah, they didn't separate, being a Hafiz and being, a geographer. They didn't put it separate. They were together. So why are we going to fragment everything else? Why do we fragment the human being? Like we fragment disciplines, we make it sociology, psychology, and so forth. So this is the bridging the gap between. I think there more and more there is some reconciliation between spirituality, not religion, between spirituality and mental health. But religion is another thing. Of course, this contrasts with reductionist approach. I won't spend too much time on some of these anyway. One of the important things is to address the psychological needs of Muslim patients. You live in a Muslim majority country, you don't see that problem. But if you live in the West, you live in UK or many of the places, there's a significant majority of Muslim, whether they are born there or they're immigrant or they're refugee and so forth. And they come with all sorts of, like Dr. Hanlan Doberman said, trauma, and, on top of that, they have Islamophobia, microaggression, and many other sort of exclusion from the main society. So it does address the psychological needs and I'm going to argue later on, it need to be more than psychological needs anyway. And of course, it's a universal framework for humanity. Like the Quran is not only for Muslim, the Quran guidance for whole humanity. I think Islamic psychology as well can be, a sort of framework for humanity. Right. I don't want to spend too much time on these, but so this more or less everybody's going to have a copy of this, so you don't have to read. So I just break down a bit more on these particular framework which I just gave you. Of course, we already talked about holism. We all talk about holistic needs, and somebody mentioned about the fitra and how we are different from Judeo-Christian, especially sort of Christian theology. In Christian theology, you have the origin of sin. Yeah. In Islam, we don't have that. We have the fitra, the purest, the pure, sort of which focus on goodness and purification and so forth. And like somebody said, the fitra is not something that you can destroy it. Yeah. But you can manipulate it, it could become deviant. And one of the aim of Islamic psychotherapy is returning people back to the fitra anyway. Of course, when we talk about interconnection, of all the dimension of the human nature, then we look at the qalb, the aql, the jasad, which is the body, and also the ruh and so forth. Let's move on. Already mentioned this, so we can move on. One aspect of Islamic psychology is focusing on not only on moral development, but also on spiritual development. In the sense that, which probably lack in conventional therapy, conventional psychology, in the sense that, because for us as Muslims, the journey to tazkiyah, the journey for purification of tazkiyah is through, is we cultivating a lot of virtues, positive virtues like patience, gratitude, sabr, and so forth. But also in terms of spiritual development, we have a lot of in things like zikr, remembrance of Allah, and also sadaqah, and also a lot of ethical living as well. I shall move on. We already talked about it that with Islamic psychology, it's bringing faith and science together. Now, some people might say, there's a problem. There's a conflict between evidence-based practice and, sources of Quran and Sunnah. There's no conflict at all. Because all the sources of knowledge come from Allah, the Almighty, whether it's Islamic or non-Islamic. So there is no contradiction between, let's say, Islamic sources, inverted commas, and non-Islamic sources. So integration should be okay. However, the importance is when you apply in practice, the importance of trying to separate what is halal or what is congruent with our aqidah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah and what is not. That's the main thing. So whatever evidence-based practice we have, we need to see whether they're congruent. We have a aqidah or we have a Islamic belief and practice. So it's a reconciliation between faith and psychology. We know the importance of faith, how important it is. There's a lot of research from Pergament and many others to show that, if you are attached to, you're religiously affiliated with a group, the outcome, the mental outcome is better. So we don't have to, there are a lot of studies about in terms of how faith tends to become a protecting, it's a form of resilience or provide some robustness against, of course, it's all depend on Allah's will. Yeah. It all depends on Allah's will as well. So we can see that, faith is a source of resilience, faith is a source of robustness. And of course, we talk about holistic healing. Therapeutic alignment, what we mean by that is that when we if you're Islamic psychotherapist and you're delivering therapy to your client, you're going to share the same worldview. You're going to share basically the same values. So in a therapeutic relationship, in the therapeutic process, my worldview as a therapist, my values as a Muslim, as Islamic psychotherapist is going to be congruent with my client, and they less likely to be conflict. And that would, I think, enlighten, would increase, would improve the whole therapeutic relationship as well. Of course, we already talked about that Islamic psychology, of course, there's a great need for it. The conventional psychotherapy or psychology has failed like Professor Oda's mentioned, Dr. Oda mentioned, that it does not fit in with our framework, our worldview. There's a lot of course, you have a lot of Muslim Freud, which I call the Muslim Freud, and so forth. And these, so we need to look at alternative. The alternative is look at Islamic psychology in addressing Muslim needs, Muslim spiritual or even religious needs. I think I already mentioned this, is that, we can integrate the work of the classical scholars. Of course, the primary source of knowledge for us is the Quran and Sunnah. So we can integrate that. We can integrate, the work of the classical scholars and with the new sort of development, the new evidence-based practice and so forth. I will move on because of the time, okay? So you have to. Now, that's my thesis. Is Islamic psychology a framework for humanity, not just Muslim? Let's have a look anyway and see. I'm going to repeat some of the things I've said already, but it doesn't matter. There is that in Islamic psychology we see everything is connected. Yeah, like Allah collected everything: the earth, the sun, the moon, the environment. So the human nature also, there's all that connection. So there is that connection of more divine spirits, and which address more or less not only the global, the universal aspect of human condition anyway. Now the important thing is, regardless of faith, I think you can apply Islamic psychology to non-Muslims. Okay, this is something which we have not really developed. I think we need to develop our own working with Muslim patients first before we can move. But there's a possibility. Like I say, try to defend this thesis. So I have to find some ideas. This could be applied to non-Muslim as well, anyway. And concept like emotional resilience, moral development, of course, finding purpose of life. Now, the finding purpose of life is very important. It's about, do you know where they have it next one? Anyway, doesn't matter. If I have the next one, sometimes people, when they get, I'm talking about non-Muslim, they don't have a purpose. They stop working and they retire from work and they find why I'm here. Yeah. What am I doing here? What's the meaning of life? As Muslim, it's very clear for us very early on, that we are here like jinn to worship Allah. We have a purpose, we have a meaning. And sometimes people have identity crisis. You do get that in therapy where people, they don't know. They have a crisis. They don't know what it is because they don't have a purpose. They don't have a meaning of life as well. And we can move on. Now, we can see that it's truly that Islamic psychology is spreading. I think like in Australia, but also in the UK, and many other countries. And one of the reasons of the rise is the demand for Muslim communities. I say communities because there's not one community. We are heterogeneous. We have different communities with different language, ethnic group, and so forth. We all have different needs. So because of that, there's a need for that. But also, a lot of young ladies are doing it privately. So when you do work privately, you can apply this. If you work for an institution, then you're constrained with all sorts of regulation. You cannot apply Islamic psychology, if you're working with a in a country with a small Muslim minority. You can do it with the Muslim clients, but again, there's also the protocol for that. So a lot of people, especially in the Western country, they work privately and they can practice and apply Islamic psychology. In fact, a lot of people tell me that I've been doing it for years. I don't know what I was doing. So in fact, they've been using storytelling, they've been using metaphor, they've been using liquor, whatever spiritual intervention they've used, but they don't realize they were doing it. So not everybody's like that, but there are some dedicated people that have done this. Anyway. Now, one of the reasons why I put that there is because in one of my books, I talk about the role of the Islamic psychotherapists. And of course, you keep changing your views all the time anyway. As I get more knowledge, I change my views. And I think what I'm going to argue there, it's very, very important in this sort of complementary society. It's called socially engaged spirituality. What it means, it's, as according to Rothberg, it means that developing spiritual quality, within the context of course, you're involved socially, politically, and also as part, of the sort of community as well. So when we talk about socially engaged, I think I'm arguing that one of the role of the Islamic psychotherapist is to be socially engaged spirituality. Of course, I also mentioned before that one of the roles to do with advocacy. You need to be advocate for clients. And advocacy and socially engaged spirit are an extension. Yeah, it's an extension of advocacy because they work together to promote justice, to promote fairness, to promote equity, to promote compassion, healing within the community as well. But also they deal with systemic issues. Like I say, if you're going to look at the people on a holistic point of view, you need to look at the environment, especially relating to mental health, the housing, the poverty, the socioeconomic status, the unemployment and so forth, and discrimination, conflict, Islamophobia, microaggression, all these. So as an advocate, as a socially engaged spiritual psychotherapist, Islamic, you need to be engaged with, especially, in the time when we can see, those genocide in occupied Palestine. So when we talk about socially engaged spirituality, we talk about, dealing with not only the mental health, because there's a lot of factors that impinge on mental. There are a lot of psychosocial factors, environment that impinge on mental health. Unless you more or less solve the problem, the socio-economic situation, environment situation, you can give a lot of medication, it's not going to work. So it's not an easy problem, it's a very complex problem. But nevertheless, our role is to try to fight for social justice, to fight for oppression, is to fight, for of human suffering as well. No matter what's happening in the world, especially a Muslim, we have an ummah, ummah, we have fard kifaya, we have a community obligation to fight for our Muslim brothers and sisters that's, in any part of the world that's being more or less, killed and murdered and martyred. So in the context of therapy, it means working with individual, not only in terms of their own growth, not only in terms of their own personal healing, but also, to try to fight for them in terms of injustice, oppression, poverty, and many other factors. So what we are saying that one of the roles is not only addressing, individual well-being, like I said, the healing process, but also the broader societal problem, the broader socio-economic problem, the broader political problem as well. That challenge that have a big impact, we know from lots of research, they have a big impact on mental health problem. So this social engaged spirituality means therapist is committed to promote justice, to promote fairness, to promote equity, to promote healing, to promote compassion as well. Reinforcing what I've said already in terms of that they are involved, as a community support, and also advocacy, and there's collective healing, or we have a collective consciousness to be able to help our brothers and sisters in different parts of the world. It is to do with, enjoying what is good and forbid what is wrong, anyway, according to the Quran interpretation of meaning. I think probably, yes, we're talking about advocacy. I think another part of that role is to do raising awareness what's happening in occupied Palestine, raising awareness of what's happening in many other Muslim countries, and and fight oppression, fight injustice, but also you need to be active in terms of working with voluntary organization or non-profit organization or human rights organization or faith-based organization to advocate for both psychosocial and also political change as well. So in concluding, I have lots of time left. I think 4 minutes, really good. And so my argument is that, okay, we can debate about it because that we can use humanistic Islamic psychology here as a form of humanistic psychology, I suppose, as a comprehensive way for everybody, not only for Muslim, but also for non-Muslim, but also promoting welfare, promoting compassion, trying to fight injustice, oppression, and many other things. Thank you very much. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Prof. Rassool, for your very comprehensive presentation. After discussing about standard with Sister Hanan, we learn about how practically the relevance of Islamic psychology, even in the global mental health, and also how to advancing the mental health of the Ummah, and Prof. Rassool give example about the advocacy for mental health impact for like Palestinian, something like that. So